I was a football mad kid. I always loved football games, from the Bleep Bloop games on the Spectrum, Sensible World of Soccer on Friends Amigas, the first FIFA International in about 93-94, all the way through to the Master Leagues on PES. So over the years the graphics have improved, the gameplay has got better, but the way we interact with the games really hasn't changed. The journey of this film is for us to find out what's going to happen in the future of football video games. FIFA and Pro Evo have the mainstream console market sewn up. Pretty well if you ask me. But we'll have to look outside the mainstream if we want to find innovation. For that reason, in this film we're going to be looking at some game developers that are making games on the fringes of the game industry, be that on mobile, tablet, consoles. Actually, I'm playing one right now. To start with, I'm going to meet John Hare. John is the creator of Sensible Soccer, one of the best football games from the early 90s. He's working on his latest incarnation, Sociable Soccer, and last month he gave me an early look from the darkness of his gaming dungeon. Now we're heading to the fine city of Norwich for a bit of football and an interview with Radio Norfolk.
Right, here we go then. Let's start this piece then. Right, so let's go along, get the names.
Kristen Reed. John Hare.
Martin Race.
Okay, now then, let's start by talking to John Hare, because John, you're an old friend of the scrimmage and you've been on plenty of times.
Yep.
We've already touched on Sociable Soccer before. How far along are you with it now?
Well, we're a year almost on from where we spoke last, and we're a division down. But it's going really well. We've got it running on all sorts of systems. So we've got the VR system there now. We've got it running on iPad and PC. We're about 6 to 9 months before release right now, kind of in the middle.
We, all our scrimmage listeners, are huge fans of Sensible World of Soccer and all the amazing games that you made back in the day, and Cannon Fodder and all the great games. But what I've just done, I've been on the VR, and I'm going to have another go in a minute, and we're going to get Phil Daly down here as well to have a go so we can get his live reaction. That is unbelievable. Now, people might think it's just going to be, oh, you're kind of running around the pitch yourself, but you're not. Explain how it works.
Well, basically, you've got a game which plays, I guess the gameplay style is similar to something like Sensible Soccer, and it is fast-paced. We can pick whatever camera angle we want because it's made in an engine called Unity. It's in 3D, so it's why we can be very versatile about platforms. But basically, you're positioned as if you're the cameraman sitting on the top of the stand on the halfway line, basically, and just you twist your head to choose where to look in the pitch. Any one time, you're controlling the whole team. So basically, the phrase we're using is "play as a god." You literally feel like you're God, just controlling the team and pushing them around. Right, now Martin's here as well. You and Joe, who's here as well, he's filming this at the minute. You're making a film following, what was it, the future of computer games, and you've picked on this man who I think's a good choice.
Yeah, that's right. So we're looking at what is the future for current football games, because we were casting our eyes around and seeing there's two major players, but it seems to be stagnating a little. So we initially contacted John to see what it was he was doing, and we can now see the VR and the ideas behind that with the game, with the sort of the PvP and the speed and the fast pace of the game, and it all seems to be something very different from what the mainstream is doing.
Well, I've just put the headset on and this feels so surreal already. Looking left, I just bashed my head on the microphone. You look left and right, bit different from my Spectrum.
I wouldn't say it's strange. I'd say it's good. I think John Hare's getting upset here. You're calling his game strange.
I don't mean strange. I mean it's surreal. I'm not used to being like this. I nearly scored a goal.
Yeah, sorry, I'll stop sticking my fingers up at you now.
That's brilliant.
The AI is pretty hardcore.
Oh man, that's awesome.
You're in.
That is superb. That is absolutely that is fucking brilliant. I've got to say, I'm not just saying that. I should be recording this.
So we're just going to go straight into some questions for you, just to
Can you
hold it down.
Okay, Joe? Yeah,
Yep, it should be all fine. So why is your game the future of gaming?
Well, our game, I guess, is the future of gaming in as much as we've had FIFA and Pro Evolution Soccer, which have been running for years together, head-to-head. Extremely good simulations, both of them. They're very good at what they do, but they've left a gap in the market for a more arcade-style quick game. Also, neither of them are picking up on VR at the moment. So we're kind of like taking the basis of your old kind of Sensible Soccer, or even in some places you could say micropost soccer, as a base of what we've done. Obviously, we were the first ones to do the big world of football anyway in a game. So we've got that stuff in there. We've added online, we've added VR, we've added, for some of the formats, free-to-play elements, collectible cards for players and stuff like that. So we're kind of combining stuff into a light version of a football game for immediate play. So we just see that as being a gap in the market. We're not saying it's going to replace FIFA and Pro Evolution Soccer, but it's going to give a viable, decent alternative which has been missing for a long while. I think in terms of mobile, to us it's interesting. So from a market perspective, FIFA made about 320 million on mobile alone last year, and there's not really many competitors in the all-action mobile space. And we've made the game purpose-built for mobile. So it's got great touch controls, you can also use it with remote controllers, you can use it in a VR headset. Whereas FIFA's come from a background where it's made for a console and PC and been ported. So we see we've got, if we can even take like 10% of their market, that's $32 million.
And in terms of VR, how do you feel that? Do you think that's going to be the future, or is it just sort of a flash in the pan?
VR at the moment it depends. So I mean, you can look at things like the motion controllers and like the Wii U and that kind of stuff, and it worked for a while, and now maybe it's not so fashionable again. I think that the VR where you put a headset on and walk around your house and maybe smash your mum's old vase and stuff, I can't see that catching on. A, because it's expensive, it's 600 and 700 quid a pop. And secondly, it requires room to move around. Our game takes the view of you're stationary, so you're sitting like you're a cameraman sitting at the top of a stand. Actually, as the guys in the studio mentioned in the Radio Norfolk, they actually sit in that position when they're commentating. So basically, you're sitting up, you're looking down, which means you can play it in a stationary position sitting down, so you're not going to walk around and smash anything. I think what people want is they want games designed for them now, and I think that what's missing is that quick, fast, like with the phone, you've got 3 minutes to finish a game. You can't really play the full offering that FIFA gives you, you can't really cram into a 3-minute experience that well, whereas our game is custom designed to do that. So I'm hoping that we're going to sit somewhere between FIFA and Rocket League and some of the other little sports games that we've had emerging. So you've got great games like New Star Soccer, which is a great game, or you've got like Football Manager, and you've got a few other football games which are good, but they're kind of like little snacks of bits of action. They're not full action. Also, it depends on your market. So because we're publishing to the world, we've got 66 world tournaments in the game, we've got 1,000 teams, there's 31,000 players. So we're hitting the whole world in the sense of World of Soccer style. But in China, for example, they prefer to watch the game and manage the team and sit back and not play. So we're also covering that kind of market. So every game you can play, depending on the format you're on, you can either play the game on your own, play in co-op, so we can play together, or you can just sit back and manage and watch.
Do you think VR, I'm just going back to that for a moment, the view that you have and the way that it's working, do you think it's going to be as important to football games or gaming as the God mode of Populous or something was, when suddenly you had that massive oval of overview like the God changed?
I think so. I think the thing with VR is it's how people forget when they're designing games. You play them through your body and your brain. So it's about how your hands are, how your eyes are, how you're thinking, and how comfortable your back is, for example. So some people with VR, for example, they don't like VR because the camera spins around, they feel nauseous. So that was the first thing we wanted to do, was get around that problem. So we tried a few moving cameras, but we ended up with a static camera. So basically, as you turn your head, the camera turns with you.
The Clive Tilsley.
Totally takes that nausea, because the first thing to remember is you're playing the game through your body. So I think that using that kind of camera angle is the future for all games of VR.
Before heading to the football, I caught up with Kristen Reed, the former editor of Eurogamer and a consultant for EA Sports FIFA series. I wanted to know what he thinks the future of that series is.
Well, this year they did the Journey, which was the narrative sort of story mode thing, and I think you can probably guess that VR is probably something that they're looking at. That's my guess. I don't know. I don't have any inside track on that whatsoever. So I would say, some kind of VR mode, probably being able to sit in the stands and view the action from different angles, that kind of thing, I think is definitely a direction they'll be going in. Apart from that, they'll most certainly be just refining different elements of the gameplay, like physicality and how differences between players, and having a more sophisticated kind of simulation of the game, essentially.
So VR, as you touched it, is it the future of video gaming, or is it just a flash?
It's really, at this point, we're really right on the cusp of being able to find out the answer to that question. I think you could say it's a bit like 3D gaming of a few years ago, where everyone thought that, wow, everything's in 3D. Look,
We've got polygons.
Yeah, and having to sit and wear glasses was actually something that people didn't want to do. So that kind of stereoscopic 3D burned out pretty quickly. There's a suggestion that VR may be one of those things where everyone gets very excited about it, but actually, the headsets become cumbersome. People don't like being sat down with a headset for lengthy periods of time. There's certainly some evidence to suggest that people feel that way about it. So maybe, sort of looking ahead, there will be a sort of form of 3D that doesn't involve the headset, and kind of combines elements of virtual reality, so it becomes more like augmented reality, where you can actually see, certain things in front of you without having to have a headset or the glasses. I think that's possibly where it's going.
And do you think there's going to be any development in sort of the input, so the player input into the game? So if you have touchscreen but it hasn't really taken off, but essentially everything you do, no matter how you change it, it's still your thumbs.
Yeah, well, there's some really interesting stuff going on in that area. There's the whole sort of wearable technology thing. Valve, who are the people who are behind Steam and games like Half-Life, they've been experimenting heavily in wearable tech for the last few years now, as far as I understand. They've never actually put anything out into the wild.
Very Valve.
So they'll be trying to make it work and trying to understand the potential of it. But you won't see it until they truly believe in it.
Yeah.
There's that.
It's another fledgling field, I suppose.
And to expand upon that, going back to the previous point about the wearable technology, there's stuff that, again, is kind of still very much in prototype stage, where you will perhaps, be feeling things on your arms, feeling stuff that's attached to your hands and maybe other parts of your body. So there's
sexy stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of really sexy stuff. Exactly.
So you suggest there's probably a public appetite for a more varied approach to football gaming,
Yeah.
but no one's willing to put any risk or money into it, because people will still buy every year of FIFA or every...
people are kind of locked into that cycle. It's kind of depressing, really, because these games are, and I'm not knocking them specifically. I like those games. I kind of admire what they do, and the kind of big budget approach that they take is, it's very looks amazing. But when I sit down and play them, I'm always conscious of the fact that there's 16 buttons. There's modifiers, there's combos, there's so much I'm not getting out of the game, and it kind of does my head in. And you can do the basics, you can pass, shoot, and cross, and tackle, and that's fine. But if you ever play it online, you're just going to get absolutely annihilated, and it's really humbling, and just
it's not fun.
It's not fun unless you're playing kind of a friend on the couch who's a similar skill level. It quickly becomes a real grind, and just not fun at all. In fact, frustrating to the point where you don't want to play it anymore. I tell them every time I work on a project is just make it more approachable for the kind of more casual player. Like I actually think a game like Sociable Soccer needs to come along and kind of just wipe the slate clean and go, hang on, this is bullshit. We never needed to use every button on the pad.
It's not just simulation games that interest me, so I also caught up with writer Ian McIntosh to talk about the future of manager games.
Well, beyond sort of more and more data and more realism, it's hard to know exactly how they're going to develop on a single player mode. But I think the future really lies in multiplayer now. Trying to find a way where you can actually bring your friends in, and I think Football Manager's got close to that with their fantasy draft. So they've found a way where you can have a self-contained game over an evening, but an ability to sort of set up your own leagues, to make your own bespoke tournaments, to play online. Sometimes playing online with strangers doesn't really work because they give up as soon as they lose. So there's no bitterness, but being able to convert what had once been a solitary pursuit into something more social, I think is the way you're going to see games go in the next 5 years. I think when you're playing a managerial game, you're looking for more of a cerebral challenge. You're looking for the grand strategy kind of approach, which you don't so much get over 5 minutes of FIFA on the PlayStation. So I think they're very different audiences, and having the crossover can be difficult. You need to find the right balance of a mental challenge and, I guess, what we'd loosely call a physical challenge. People have done it in the past. There's been the player manager games by Anko. There's been NSS on the phones, which has essentially been a solo managerial career. But no one's really done it on a mass market yet, with the exception of the FIFA ones. I think you're seeing really interesting crossover now in reality and the structure of computer games. So there's a team in the lower leagues in Germany who have about 300-400 members who use technology to get together, and they review footage, they pick tactics, they pick the team, and you're going to get more and more of that. I don't know if it will lead to successful football teams. I'm not sure that management by committee is ever a really good thing, but it certainly brings a level of involvement that people haven't had, and particularly when you get clubs who are treating their fans badly, as you see so often, you're probably going to see a few more of these breakaways. What's interesting is the gap between what people say they want and what they actually want. You notice a funny little thing with reviews of Football Manager. The bad ones tend to be written by people who have done really badly, and the good ones tend to be written by people who've done really well. You can have two people who really like games and really like football and have completely different views of incarnations of this game, dependent on whether they were successful or not. So I think deep down what people want is the kind of affirmation that a successful game of Football Manager brings. You know, that feeling that, yes, I do know about football because look what I've done on my laptop. What they say they want is always very different, more detail usually, more involvement. But I think really what people want is fun and escapism, and they want it to be fun. What can Football Manager games bring in the future? For me, divorce.
It's clear that the mobile market is the fastest growing platform for games developers, so I'm going to meet with Simon Reed, the creator of one of the most successful mobile football games, New Star Soccer. New Star Soccer is a free-to-play mobile game. It's basically a lifestyle sim with elements of action within the game where you control it, and that depends how well you do. But overridingly, it's really, really addictive.
And I get a lot of people saying I've had to delete it because it's sort of taken over my life, you know, and that's great. I mean, I love to hear that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think first day it launched on iOS, it made something like 500 quid. And I was like, shit, this is good.
Right.
This is all right.
Take that every day.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next day it was a little bit more, and the next day it was a bit more, and it like just kept going. And you know, you're watching the charts, and it's nowhere to begin with, and then suddenly you're in like the top 100, and then it's top 50, and I'm like, this is going all the way. And I think within about a month, it hit the #1 spot. Well, it's definitely more interesting now because I think 5 or 6 years ago, you know, all you got was FIFA and Pro Evo. But with the mobile market, there's just so many games popping up. People like me just on their own making games. And sort of medium, small companies that are doing some great stuff.
What do you think? You mentioned that you've sort of seen it, but what do you feel about the idea of John Hare's sociable soccer? Do you think there's a niche for that?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there are quite a few of those types of games popping up on like Steam now, which is the sort of traditional console experience. You know. Usually multiplayer is the best way to play it, obviously.
Sort of like the Rocket League type.
Yeah, and it should be, I haven't played it yet, looks like it'd be good fun, and I think the VR aspect will be quite interesting, because I think that's what I'd like to see from the console games, you know, like FIFA and Pro Evo. Well, I do hope that the VR aspect takes off. I'm a bit worried that it's kind of a bit of a flash in the pan, because you know, I bought a Sony PSVR, absolutely loved it for about 2 weeks. Now I haven't touched it for a couple more weeks or so, which does worry me. And there are issues, obviously, not just resolution, but motion sickness and all that. So I'm hoping that there is that football games will find their feet in that way. I'd love to, to sort of just be above the pitch, sort of godlike view, which is what John Hare's doing, I think.
Yeah, the populous view.
Yes, yeah. Because I just think that'd be amazing, just to see you guys running around. And if you could then go a bit further and have direct control. So let's say instead of having like a control pad as you normally would, and just like one player at a time, you could sort of point to that guy and shift him up the wing, or that kind of aspect, which is kind of where I'm going with my next football game on mobile. So it's a top-down game, and you'll be able to drag players around and get them making runs and things.
Do you think there's any scope for sort of a one-player kind of experience?
Yes, I don't know quite how that works. I mean, if you're from the player's viewpoint, you mean, on the pitch, I can't figure out how you would actually kick the ball. Are you using a control pad? Are you?
But that's the question. What's this? Because we're moving it. So we've had the control pads around for a while. Is there a next level? And obviously we've got touch screen.
Yeah.
But what else is there that we can use?
It's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, I don't see myself ever going down that route in terms of developing new games.
What do gamers want?
Oh, good question. Well, what I always wanted as a gamer was to live the life of a professional footballer. You didn't have to be the David Beckham. In my era, that was who everyone aspired to be. It didn't have to be that kind of superstar.
I'd still like to be David Beckham. I wouldn't say no.
But it was just sort of enjoying that life. And I know with FIFA you've got the new story mode and all, that's kind of trying to do that. And I think people do want that, and that's always what I wanted.
In conclusion, it's clear that the larger developers are still dominant on the consoles. However, new platforms such as mobile gaming and innovative but unproven technologies like VR are providing smaller developers with a way to crack into the market and lay down fresh ideas for football video games. For developers like John, the future is bright, although it may only be a matter of time before the established elite swoop in and pinch his ideas. But that's what progress looks like, right? So that's that. But for now, I think I'd rather stick to a classic.